I made my first top 10 zombie games for the Xbox 360 back in 2010. Back then there wasn't even enough zombie games to make a full list. Instead I had to add games like Resident Evil 5 and Fallout 3. I added Fallout 3 because I said it would be the perfect setting for a zombie game, but it didn't even have zombies. Now we're in 2013, well at least I am at the time I made this video, and thanks to the success of The Walking Dead, game developers are all trying to cash in on the zombie genre. But this means I'm able to make my best list yet. But before we begin, there are a few rules to be considered for games getting on the list. And the first is that it must contain zombies. This means that games like Resident Evil 4, 5 and Dead Space will not be considered. In fact, let's just put a stop to the rumour that Resident Evil 4 has zombies. Even on the back of the case, the game says, "Forget zombies." So I'm going to make sure my list features games with traditional zombies, like the kind you would find in The Walking Dead. I always like to start off my lists with an Xbox Live Indie game or Xbox Live Arcade game, and this year I've got a really special one. It's called Dead Pixels. This game is filled with references to other zombie games and movies, and it has a really fun little soundtrack. Dead Pixels is on Xbox Live Indie Games and it only costs $1, so you really can't go wrong. I always thought Dead Rising was a fun zombie game. That was until I played Lollipop Chainsaw. This is not a realistic zombie game, if such a thing exists. This is a fun zombie game and should be judged accordingly, but it does pay reference to other modern zombie games. In fact, it actually makes fun of how in modern zombie games and movies the zombies can run.
Running zombies? Fucking stupid.
Yeah, what kind of idiot would come up with that?
So if anything, the zombies in Lollipop Chainsaw are more traditional than modern ones, because most of them are sort of the shuffling, slow moving ones. Either way, if you can take Lollipop Chainsaw with a pinch of salt, it's actually quite a fun game. In fact, if you don't enjoy it, I think you must be dead inside. Okay, here we have it. Dead Rising 1, 2, Case 0, Case West, Off the Record. It's really becoming more like Broken Record with the Dead Rising franchise. Even though I put Dead Rising 2 in the top of my list for my 2012 video, I'm just honestly getting sick of it. And considering Dead Rising is now number 7 on the list, it just goes to show how many better games have been released since then. I think the franchise is still pretty good and I'm being pretty hard on it putting it down to number 7. But there have just been so many releases of the game that I've just sickened myself with the entire franchise. But if you've never played them before, I definitely think you should give one of them a go, and possibly even just Dead Rising 1. Because I think we play these games to remind us of zombie movies, and Dead Rising 1 did a great job of recreating them all in Dawn of the Dead. Number 7. Whether it's Left 4 Dead 1 or 2, the debate still rages on. Are they zombies? Aren't they zombies? It's pretty unbelievable how people still argue about this. In my 2010 zombie video I said that you could argue that there are no zombies in Left 4 Dead, and I still stand by that. I believe they're just infected people, not the undead. But Left 4 Dead is a fast-paced co-op game, arguably one of the best on the Xbox 360, and for that reason it probably wouldn't have suited slow moving zombies because it's just not that kind of game. The reason I put it slightly higher on the list than in previous videos is because it's really stood the test of time. I've been back playing it co-op recently and I've tried out some of the new maps. And not only did I decide to keep it on the list, I decided to move it up above other games on the list which have become stagnant. The art style and the built up city levels in Left 4 Dead 1 made it very memorable and groundbreaking at the time. Something I don't really think was recaptured in Left 4 Dead 2. But if I had to pick between the games, I would pick Left 4 Dead 2, because you can play all the Left 4 Dead 1 levels in it anyway. Number 6, The Walking Dead from Telltale. I played this, or should I say I watched this game shortly after finishing the TV series. I wanted to see more Walking Dead, and this game pretty much served that purpose. For the most part, and I'm not trying to belittle the gameplay consists mostly of pointing and clicking on things, which is pretty standard with Telltale. The question was raised on jmmreview.co.uk, is The Walking Dead the best video game ever? To which I responded, I wouldn't say that it was the best game, I wouldn't even say that it was a game. It's more like an interactive movie, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Especially when you consider that in most of the Metal Gear Solid games, you spend more time watching cutscenes than you do actually playing the game. If there are people out there that enjoy story over gameplay, then this is definitely the game for you. Number 5. Walking Dead Survival Instincts. I'm going to start off by saying that ever since I played Resident Evil 2, I've always wanted a first person version of a game where you're in a city filled with zombies. And Walking Dead Survival Instincts does a pretty good job of that. And the style of the graphics are very similar to how the TV series looks. It's almost as if the cloud in the game has been copied and pasted from some of the scenes in the TV series. One thing that makes this game stand out from the other games on the list so far is the emphasis on survival. You would expect more zombie games to have these kind of elements, but most zombie games nowadays are just action games. But in Walking Dead Survival Instincts, you definitely feel like the odds are against you, and quite often the best way to deal with the zombies is to run past them. Something I haven't seen since the early Resident Evil games. A lot of the times in the game I found myself trapped and in a panic, which is how you should feel playing a zombie game. And what's really special about this is that it happens organically throughout the game, because of good level design, or purposely bad level design, whatever way you want to look at it. In this part of the game, quite a large number of zombies had gathered outside a cafe I had been holding up in, so I decided to close the door to buy me some time to think. It took me a while to notice, but the zombies in the background didn't seem to be paying too much attention to the door I had closed, and they were all kind of shuffling to the right. It was about this time I realised that there was another doorway to the cafe. So here's the scenario. You're in a cafe, surrounded by zombies with one door barricaded because they're trying to get in, and the other door has a steady stream of zombies pouring in. Oh, and you only have 4 bullets. The only logical thing to do is to run. And that's what this game really forces you to do quite a lot. And like I said, this is all completely organic. This wasn't something that was a set piece. I closed them doors because I thought I needed to. Really all I was doing was trapping myself in, which is something you actually see over and over again in zombie movies where people barricade themselves in with their back against the wall. That's not to say that the game is perfect by any means, after all it's number 5 on the list, but I'm not going to nitpick all the shortcomings. Instead I'll just show you the one true problem with this game. This game was rushed by Activision to try and quickly capitalise on the success of the TV series, and that is its only downfall. Number 4 is Dead Island. I've talked about this game on my other lists, but it never actually made it onto any of them because it took so long to release. And when it did finally release, it didn't live up to a lot of gamers' expectations. But then again, no game ever could have, because just before the game was released they uploaded a trailer which created one of the craziest hype trains I had ever seen. But despite some shortcomings and really weird game mechanics, Dead Island was the first big open world first person zombie game, and it even had co-op. For that reason alone it more than deserves its place on the list. And an interesting thing about it is that it features both infected people and undead zombies, just to keep everyone happy. I enjoyed it so much that I made a number of Let's Play videos, that number being 8, half of which featured co-op gameplay. Using the foundations of Dead Island Riptide greatly improved on its predecessor. Most of the changes were small things, but when they all added up it made a much better zombie experience. Things like adding stormy weather and slow, sad music really created much more of a feeling of dread, which is what you should feel when you're playing an apocalyptic game. Even the missions were slightly more based on surviving and defending your base. In Dead Island 1 you could just take it for granted that the zombies wouldn't come into your base, but Dead Island Riptide featured set pieces where the zombies would attack your base, which, although was scripted, still made things feel a little bit more urgent. Even the guns had finally been improved. One shot to the head would kill most zombies, which is how the guns should work in my opinion. If you hadn't played either of the Dead Island games, I would recommend you just pick up Dead Island Riptide, and that's why I've put it to number 3. Number 2, Resident Evil Code Veronica. There are 2 things that Resident Evil Code Veronica does better than any other game on this list, and that is fear and survival. Which is strange because almost every zombie movie is about survival. It's about surviving zombies, that's usually the whole point. But I find that more and more newer zombie games feature less survival. They're usually just action games that focus on killing zombies mindlessly, just holding down triggers or tapping buttons. In fact, this is a feature in all of the modern Resident Evil games like Operation Raccoon City or Resident Evil 6. So now with Resident Evil Code Veronica being on Games on Demand, this gives you a unique opportunity to play a classic Resident Evil game on the Xbox, with slow moving zombies that it's better to just avoid rather than kill. And there can be no doubt that Resident Evil Code Veronica is a zombie game, and that these are the traditional slow moving zombies. In fact, there's one part where you come across a zombie that's been anatomized, which basically means someone has performed an autopsy on it, removing the heart and lungs and all the other major organs. When you leave the room and come back, you find a doctor zombie, possibly the same doctor that performed the autopsy, feeding off the corpse. As they spot you, both zombies get up and chase you around the room. So what's so important about that? Well, it shows you that these are corpses reanimated and brought back to life, not just people that have been infested with a parasite or a virus. So this is a true zombie game in every sense of the word, and well deserves its place as number 2 on the list. Number 1, State of Decay. An open world zombie game where survival is paramount. You never feel safe and the odds are always against you, and there are base building mechanics which require you to scavenge resources throughout the world. This game is special for a number of reasons, but in this top 10 I'm only going to give you 2. One is that it's the zombie game that most gamers have been waiting on. Most zombie fans I know have always said they wanted an open world zombie game, and this is really it. Sadly it doesn't have co-op yet, but it's still the best thing we have so far. The second thing that's special about this game is that it could very well be the spark that revives the survival horror genre. It's hard to tell now without hindsight, but this is the closest thing I have played to a survival horror game for years. But I've already done a full review of State of Decay, and there will be a link at the end of the video. For more zombie games like PC zombie games, check out jmremreview.co.uk, where we have a whole sub-forum dedicated to zombie games and movies. Or check out my website to see a full list of Xbox 360 zombie games. You could also check out my full Resident Evil Code Veronica video where I take a comparison of the HD version to the standard definition version. I also have a series called How We Lost Survival Horror, starting off with Resident Evil 2 showing how a survival horror game should be. I hope you enjoyed the list. If you think you could post a better list then feel free, or else come on over the website and tell us there.